Hello and welcome. Appreciate you guys watching the video. Thanks for the response to the request yesterday. Wondering how many people were interested in watching the video. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. If you would like to be able to create a quilt with your class and have it be about literature, or you're trying to actually have the kids write a story that develops a particular perspective, I would start out with a 12 by 12 piece of paper, and that's going to be your backing for your actual project. So one of the things that I always do is I always ask the kids to bring in fabric. And most parents, most families have fabric just around the house that they have left over from a project that they worked on, and they'd love to get rid of it. And so they're more than happy to send fabric to school with their child. So one of the things that can be a problem is if the fabric, a lot of times fabric is going to be very, very random. So the chances of you getting exactly what you're looking for, probably not going to happen. But it forces the kids to really have to think about, well, how could I use this to show a particular perspective? And it really works on symbolism and perspective for kids, and so it becomes a great project, and their explanations for the symbols that they use are usually very deep, and I'm usually very, very impressed with what the kids are able to come up with. So you can, depending on how many perspectives you have the kids do, you can either use a 12 by 12, 12 by 18, but I try to stick with a 12-inch framework that way, or at least a 6-inch framework, because it's 6, 6, and 6 gets you the 18, 6 and 6 gets you the 12. So it's an easy number to work with, and then all the fabric is cut into 6-inch squares, and I'm just going to use construction paper for today. And sometimes when you don't have fabric, construction paper is going to be your best friend, because the kids are able to put symbols on here. I'd never allow them to draw pictures of like scenes of what happened in a book, but I do want them to come up with symbols that they feel represent either a character or a perspective in the story that they're trying to communicate. So one of the things that I do is I divide my paper, I put grid lines on it, and that way the kids have a spot where they can actually line up their 6-inch squares. So what I'm going to have you do is, I like to use hot glue. It holds better, but obviously you can't do that with younger kids. So glue stick, and you only glue one side. So only glue along one side of your paper. And I already have 2 on here, and I'm going to take my 6-inch square, I'm going to glue it on to the white sheet. And it's important that you always have the glue on the same side of your squares so that they all open in the same direction. And I'll do the last one. And as you can see, mine's all purple, and I just did that for contrast between the background and the fabric. But the students, when they choose the different perspectives, they will have a whole variety of color, and it will actually be a very unique piece because it's their individual interpretation of the perspectives from the book, or their own individual interpretation of the story that they're trying to write. And one of the things I saw with this was onomatopoeia. And students, they had a word. They had to choose an onomatopoeia that they wanted to compose a story about. So kids had words like bang, boom, crash, smack on each of these, and then so it looked almost like a comic book. It was great. And then when you lift up the flap or the fabric, you could read the story that went along with the word. And the story was all centered around that one word. So it was a really interesting, very unique quilt that the kids made, and I loved it. One of the things I would suggest is if you're doing a book that either has some controversial themes in it or has some what could be used as controversial symbols, make a disclaimer. I did this project with The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, and because it is a story about World War II, Nazi Germany, concentration camps, obviously some swastikas showed up in the quilt. Well, I had some Army veterans come in, and they were, I don't want to say upset that there were swastikas in the classroom, but they were very inquisitive. They really wanted to know why. And so at that point I decided, you know what, it's going to be really important to have a disclaimer or an explanation sheet posted beside my quilt. And then that way anybody who has a question, they can read through that, and you know, it explains exactly what the story is about. But I just want to throw that out there as a suggestion. If you do decide to do a story, especially about the Holocaust or something like that, it could raise a lot of questions, and it's just an easy way to deal with that. So these I thought could make great bulletin boards, and every student gets to put up their perspective, and then as parents come in, whether it's for parent-teacher conferences or just to chat, pick up their student from school, they can see the quilt, and it's really interesting. It's something that stands out. It's not a typical class project, and they can look at the perspective and then read why that square was designed that particular way, because the students here have an explanation as to why they chose to decorate or design that particular perspective in that way. So great project for perspective, great project overall for the kids. They really have a lot of fun, and it's not seen as, oh, this is, you know, something that my grandmother does in her spare time. This is a very fun, very real project, something that I can have my own personal twist on. So let me know how it works for you guys. Please upload, share some photos of when you've done this with your students and how it's gone. Give some feedback, and I'll chat with you later. Have a good one.